God's not involved, that leads to all of these things, because all of it is evil spirits.
Torment. Hell is a universe. It's not you get tossed in a lake of fire. Oh, I'm burning. No. Think again. No. Hell got its own individual departments. Whatever your sin was, whatever you decide to go for in this world, the things that you love to do, the thing that carries you, the thing that takes you to that place that you love to do, that goes against God, you're gonna do that. They got a place for you. They got a spot for you in hell. And believe me, what you love now, you are going to hate when you get there.
Everything you feared in this life, some of them, they put it in the food. There are some people, as they bit the food, fire ants would come out. Others, spiders would come out. Scorpions would come out. Each torment was customized to the individual.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Not of This World podcast, episode 10. I'm Josh, and I've got my partner here, Steve, with me.
Howdy ho, neighbors.
We're excited to continue on with the content of our Fall-oween, our Halloween episodes. Fall-oween, little play on the fallen angels, the fallen world that we live in, and Halloween all in one. If you like what we're saying here today, please hit like or subscribe. And I think we're just going to get right into it today, right, Steve? You've got video you want to
let's get going. I think, you want to be surprised by what we watch some weeks, and you have zero clue what we're going to be talking about. So let's just get right into it.
Okay.
I'll update you after the video about everything that's going on in the video, okay?
Okay, sounds good. We're going to go right into it. Here we go.
That was the second time. I went 4 different occasions. I had 2 more experiences. And this started on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday was the last night.
This is a recap of all 4 days of his dreams in hell.
And as I'm in this cave, it was really quiet at first, but the fear was overtaking me at such a point to where I literally, I was frozen. But it was the state of paralysis that I knew that I was in, that I could not begin to try to come out of. And as I would look around, because I was still trying to distinguish where I was at, this noise started to gradually pick up, and the scream of terror and pain was entering my body. I could feel the screams. I wanted to cry, but I was too scared. I had so much fear inside of me to where I couldn't cry. And I continued to kind of peer my eyes around to see what was happening. This rock tomb that I was encased in, there were bodies. These are all souls that were encased in this tomb. Inside of this tomb was the tomb of hell, and the bodies were forever. They would not, the count, I cannot count how many there were inside of that tomb. You couldn't even cry because the pain was so immense. It was so horrible. The smell that came from this particular station was unbearable. You would lose your body parts. And once again, when it would stop, everything go back together quickly. And I pleaded, I was like, let me die. And I could hear the demon that was running the ride. He was getting such a kick. It was like the pleasure that he felt was so incredible from seeing the pain. And he had hit the lever again, and now the ball was being and once again the breakage, the torment. Hell is a universe. It's not you get tossed in a lake of fire. Oh, I'm burning. No. Think again. No. Hell got its own individual departments. Whatever your sin was, whatever you decide to go for in this world, the things that you love to do, the thing that carries you, the thing that takes you to that place that you love to do, that goes against God, you're gonna do that. They got a place for you. They got a spot for you in hell. And believe me, what you love now, you are going to hate when you get there. You're gonna hate when you get there. Believe me, you will hate it. Every race, color, creed, religion was on this street. I seen nuns, I seen priests, I seen Buddhists, I seen Hindus, I seen them all. Everybody was there. And what was so scary is that I was walking and they would walk past me and the voices, it wasn't screams and it wasn't none of that. All you could hear was, why am I here? I don't know why I'm here. How did I get here? Do you know how I got here? I don't know how I got here. Do you know how somebody help me? I wish somebody could help me, but I can't talk to anyone. I'm just all by myself. Very, 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 very fast. It's very, very quick. They just all I heard as I walked down the street. I'm walking, and it was the once again, it was the darkness of hell that was there. It illuminated. And then I seen another figment that came out of the darkness. This other figment that came out of the darkness, it was my dad. And he just looked at me and he was in such despair. He was in so much pain. And something in me, I wanted to help him. I wanted to grab him and pull him, but I could not reach. I couldn't reach to grab him. There was nothing I could do. Nothing could help me save him. And then eventually they disappeared and went back off into the darkness. And all I heard was just help me, please, help me. But it was nothing that I could do. As your skin is being ripped from your body, as your teeth are being broken, as your tongue is being clipped, as your eyes are protruding out of your head. You know what you think about? You think about every time your grandmother told you that you need to serve God. You know what you think about? You think about every time you turn the TV channel and you heard a message about serve God and repent. You know what you think about? You think about every time somebody came to you and told me, do you know Jesus Christ? Do you have a relationship with Jesus Christ? You think about that. You think about that. You hear about the times that you could have prayed and you get tormented. You get tormented because you had the chance to serve God. You had the opportunity to serve God. You had the opportunity to have everlasting life, but you chose to party. You chose to fornicate. You chose to lie. You chose to steal. You chose to do drugs. You chose to get drunk. You chose to cheat on your husband or your wife. You chose to rob and steal people and kill people. And this is what you got. This was what you got. This is right here. This is what you got. You got eternal torment. So take this and love it, because it's not going to stop. But you think about that through your torment. This is what you think about. You didn't even have to be here. God does not send people to hell. We send ourselves to hell. God does not send anybody to hell. He loves us too much. He loves you too much. He loves me too much. We send ourselves to hell. We do. We send ourselves to hell. God doesn't send people to hell. And I remember I had a backpack on, and I had my hands in my backpack in the straps, and I'm just walking. But I'm walking to this light. There was a light that was at the end of the street, and for some reason, and glory be to God, hallelujah. I think I just got it now. See, he was leading me out of hell. See, and these things that was gripping me and was upon me. See, I didn't feel none of that no more, and I was headed to this light. I was feeling real good. Glory be to God, hallelujah. See, he was bringing me out. He brought me out. He was bringing me out. He was bringing me from the darkness into his marvelous light. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Man, that's terrifying.
We were doing last week and we talked about Satanists and devil worshippers and all the things that on this planet that we can deal with, that's our adversary. And I was trying to think of like what truly you should be scared of, and it's eternity in hell.
Yes.
That gentleman, his name is Reggie Wallace, and he grew up as a basketball player, and he was very talented. He was in the he went to college, played basketball, and he was actually going to go pro, and he shattered his ankle. And after he shattered his ankle, he did share that he backslid a lot. Like he's like, I would go to church with my grandma and my mom. And he would share that he would live a fast life on the weekends. You know, aside from like basketball, he'd go out and get drunk. He'd be fornicating. He'd do all these different things, and so he's living like a double life, like trying to pretend he's Christian, being an athlete, and living the fast life. And he said after he shattered his ankle, he just was like, he gave up. He said he literally started like selling drugs right away because he was wanted to make money, and so he just that quick change of like how his motives were. He went to um, doing drugs and selling drugs, and it just this spiral that he talks about is amazing to see how fast his life falls apart.
Yeah.
But it is important to hear his backstory, but specifically though, his were dreams. It wasn't even like he had a near death experience. He
Yeah.
was just so caught up into doing drugs every night, and he literally had to take so many drugs to fall asleep. That every night he was falling
He
asleep.
had these dreams while he was living that double life, or while he was
Uh,
just completely away from God.
he was completely away from God.
Okay. That's
He
my.
he went through like a 20-year marriage, and then he after that he separated, and he met this like stripper from Vegas, and he just started saying how he started talking about demonic things happening in his life, and he just saw everything unfolding. He was living like at a part-time job doing like truck driving work,
Mhm.
and he got caught with like beer cans in his truck, and he got fired. And just this spiral of like everything that happened, like he would go to bed. He was working like for a carnival doing like rides, and like he literally started having these dreams. So the dreams for me are not as crazy as near death experiences.
Yeah, I've definitely heard near death experiences that are way more intense.
And so the episode, I labeled it dreams and near death experiences because even the next videos we're going to start watching, which I'll lead up to, it's a dream until it wasn't, which is an
Yeah.
interesting part of that video.
Okay.
What did you take away from that video?
To me, I think probably the most important thing he said to me was when he said, "You send yourself to hell. God
Mm-hmm.
doesn't send you to hell." And that is so true because I mean, just thinking about when you try to talk to someone about God and they're like, "What are you judging me for?" And they think you're there in an aggressive, like judgmental stance when you're really just like, no, no, I'm trying to help you. I love you as a person. I love you as one of God's creation. And I want you to be a brother or sister, and I want you to end up in eternal glory. Like I've heard too many of these NDEs. I've heard of these dreams, and it's just the thought of someone going to hell is so terrifying and horrible. I don't want anyone to ever experience that. I don't want anyone to be stuck with that. Um, but also what his explanation when he was saying like with the people walking by, like, I don't know how I ended up here. Where am I? Blah blah, like that
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. Have you ever seen? It's an older movie with Robin Williams called "What Dreams May Come."
It's one of my favorite movies.
Dude, I loved that movie when I was younger. And it's just such a cool portrayal of hell and heaven in that
Mm-hmm.
movie. But that kind of reminded me of that, like how his wife was just lost in this, like, she just couldn't understand where she was. She was just wrapped up in this mindset of just being completely lost in just disarray. And that's kind of what it reminds me of, what he was talking about. And I know you're going to show some NDEs today, you said, and I don't know if any will have this same thing, but I've seen some in the past where these people are stuck in hell in this near death experience, but then they cry out to God, and God is there. They're pulled out of that hell and pulled back. So I've always wondered, like, do people still have a chance at that moment when they're first sent to hell before they get lost? Like, do they still have a chance to cry out to Jesus at that time? I would never want to risk that. I definitely would
Right.
never want to risk that. But is there still that chance?
There's the next NDE. It's just two NDEs, and then I'm going to end it with one where we're not going to discuss it. But
Mm.
there is some of this thing talked about in the next one. If we get through all of it, or I'll put it in there extra because we talked about it. But yeah, it is interesting. it's so interesting to listen to the two different comparisons of the NDEs, because the heaven ones are always so pleasant, and they make you feel like there's people talk about seeing their pets, people talk about all their family that's passed on before them, and even the people that they didn't know, and how much love there is for them, and how excited they are to have them be part of everything. And I guess I never really took the time to think about the afterlife in a way that, did you know like the term Sheol?
Sheol, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't really even think about any of that. How there's a waiting period until everyone's waiting for Jesus to come back.
Mm-hmm.
I never really acknowledged that until this week, which has been kind of eye opening for me, that there's a waiting period for both sides, people in hell and people going to heaven, and it's supposed
like
to be
they're
the
not
same place.
fully in heaven type thing. I'm very confused by that, like what it is right now, right?
Right.
So, for instance, I would believe that my mom is in heaven, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
is she in a waiting heaven, or is she in? Yeah, I'm very confused by that.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I don't know how that works entirely. But I remember a few months ago, me and you were talking about, I think it's the book of Matthew, but it's one of the Gospels talks about how when Jesus is crucified and the minute he dies, the dead resurrect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been like this mystery to me, like, how can that just be one sentence in the Bible that you don't elaborate this big
Right? There's
long story?
nothing else.
And no one talks
The dead
about it.
walked into town,
Right.
right?
But imagine that scenario where like he's crucified and like but it's almost like it's a foreshadowing of everything that's to come. Like we're called to, in the Revelation, it talks about the dead men will rise, the people of God will rise. So it's always a crazy situation to me
I know.
when we
I
start talking
can't.
about these things to the unknown.
Yeah, I can't wait to have those answers someday, and I pray that I continue on the path I'm on and end up in the pleasant aspect of it than having to deal with what you see. But
This morning, we have a Bible study that we do, and one thing that I was actually thinking about is Jesus's craft that he did as a trade for a career.
mm-hmm.
Did you ever
Carpenter.
dive into that about carpentry? Like
What do you mean
think
by
over
that?
that. So I had this. It's not a revelation, just more of a thought process this morning, where I was thinking about Jesus is taking something that's dead, a tree that dies,
Hmm.
and he takes all the pieces from it and creates something new out of it. Does
Wow,
that make
that
sense?
is,
And
yeah,
it's the perfect trade for him
yeah.
to be the Messiah. Like there's nothing better than that. He takes something that's broken and gonna die, and he reforms it into something useful and has purpose.
That's awesome. I've actually never thought about that like that. I always kind of in my head, I always kind of put it together with the line about how the the stone that was rejected becomes the chief cornerstone,
Mm-hmm.
like the main cornerstone. I just kind of always put that together in my head with Jesus being a carpenter for some reason, of like he's the foundation. Um, I know it's not the same, but I really like that, with taking the dead wood and
Mm-hmm.
turning it into something, building it into something that is useful, beautiful, whatever. That's cool.
And I just thought about Reggie's story that we just watched, and even though it's not a near-death experience, he's obviously convicted enough to change his life and give his life to God and get off drugs and do this. I don't. There's no follow-up story with him.
I feel like that was a lifeline from God, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he was walking with God, at least somewhat. He was a believer. He was there as part of it at one time before his life fell apart, and it was almost like God was like, this guy needs a big wake up call. I'm going to show him
Yeah.
exactly where he's headed, and I'm going to show him that there is still a light there at the end, and so he better start walking towards that light right now.
All right, Josh, I was thinking about showing you that next clip. Both of these clips are from Touching the Afterlife podcast, which is a pretty cool thing I watch on YouTube sometimes. They have some really good interviews about NDEs. This gentleman's name is Ryan Cook. He was a firefighter, and he had his life kind of like, his father, I believe, was a pastor, and he knew of God, but he mocked God openly and did not trust him. He's a firm atheist, and he gets almost like a Christmas Carol. It's his story of his life. The first night he has a firefighter presence guy, an old guy, and I didn't know who he is, but he comes to visit him the first night, and he basically says, "Hey, you need to turn around your life and do it now." you're heading down the wrong path. And he's openly talking about how he's a firefighter. He drinks all the time, and how he's like, it's like almost encouraged. And we were in the military. It is part of the lifestyle of like living some of these hard jobs where you do things that like they're hard to do. Second night, he has the same ghost come to him and basically says, and he believes that he's born again. He actually believes it this time. He goes to church that day. He says the sinner's prayer, not knowing anything about religion. He's like, I'm solid, dude. And he goes to bed that third night, and he gets taken to hell.
Ooh.
And he gets a tour of hell. And so every little clip like gets broken down in little segments, and we'll have the breaks in between to talk about things. But it's literally, he's going through almost like Dante's Inferno.
Okay.
He talks about going through each level of hell.
Okay.
So you want to roll the clip?
You have not heard, nor have you listened to any warning I've given you. Do you know where you are? I said, I have no idea where I am. He said, this is the place you shall visit for your disobedience. He said, Ryan, is there a fire? And I said, no, I don't see any. I said, I just feel the heat. He said, let me help you. Boom. Got to watch the darkness light up. And what was underneath me was, it was a fire like we've never seen here on earth. You see, everybody perceives hell. And that picture I sent you the other day is pretty accurate, but the only difference is it's not orange, yellow flame like we see in this life. It's the hottest flame reserved for the devil. It's blue. You're burning up in God's fury. That eternal flame is there to torment you day and night, night and day. It is like when you look into a natural gas heater. It's about like that. So this was where I was. And he said, some lessons have to be taught. He said, I shall revisit you for 3 nights, and you shall make a decision where you stay. And here's the interesting thing, is things that we've read in the Romans, the Greek mythology, the Egyptians, everybody, I think, has maybe some pieces to it, because we hear about the river of Styx. We walked up to a river, and we're just walking in a forest. Walked up to a river, and it was in a clearing, and this river parted, just like Moses would part the sea. I didn't know about any of that, by the way. I hadn't opened a Bible. So I'm just experiencing things in the raw. As you walk by, you can see all the souls that were moving through this river. They look like faces. That's the best way to explain it. And it's almost like we broke up an intersection of traffic. They were waiting for us to pass so they can continue wherever it is that they go. The moment we exited that river on the other side, the world was gray. The world was becoming more void of light. So imagine the life we have right now without color. And the further you walk, the darker it gets. There's no sunlight. There's only pain. And there's suffering. The further you walk through this darkness, the more you feel that you deserve it. The more you're being told and hear that you have walked away from God. And everything that's about to happen, you deserve it all.
So that's his entry into hell.
Okay. So
You see
he's
the Christmas Carol theme?
already experienced the first 2 days with that fireman type spirit.
This presence, yeah, his guiding light. Like, it's basically, you come to find out it's almost like his guide through hell, which he's
This is the same spirit that takes him to hell?
Yeah.
Been the same thing every day. Okay.
It's literally like the Christmas Carol in real life.
Gotcha. Yeah, that
but
is.
He does describe at certain points where he's like walking through hell, and like this, the only thing keeping him from being dragged away is this guide. Okay. His presence is so bright, and like he's of God, that he knows he has to stay close. So he's literally like just trying to hug this guy and like stay as close as he can.
It's one of those things. As crazy as this sounds, like I think it would be cool to experience. Like it's horrifying, but I think it would be cool to experience something like this. Like when you hear it, oh man, I'm saying this.
You just have to die, Josh. You just have to die, and you can do it.
That's all I got to do.
Do you remember the movie Flatliners?
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Yeah. But it's one of those things, like just to know, like you hear it from other people, you hear their explanations, but just to see it and just to know how horrible and whatever. I mean, I guess it's in a way it's a blessing that we don't have to experience it. And I'm talking about short term. I'm talking about in the time of a dream, because long term, obviously, sounds like the absolute worst thing. And it is. That's why it's hell for eternity. But also, I guess the Bible does say that those who believe without seeing are blessed, right? So I guess if you have to be shown this, you're probably not headed where you need to be.
Yeah, I think for me, the reason why it was important to touch on this is like the things that in life that we should be really fearful of. Like we dressed, is Halloween that scary? If you're following God, it's not that scary. The holiday, how it's celebrated in the United States for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Last week we talked about people who worship the devil and how that night might be like their Christmas. Yeah. That's not good. But this is hell. This is like the resting place that you'll spend forever in. In the first video we talked about, this gentleman goes into great detail about the layers as he's walking through. He just passed, like he described, a river with all these souls in it, and he's starting to walk through each layer of hell. And instead of going like ascending up, he's descending down. Yeah. He describes it almost like a mine being excavated in a circle, where the top layer, there's a ton of people up there, and as you get lower, the worst of your sins is the lower you get. If you're ready to see that first level, we can.
Yeah, I want to hear what comes next.
Okay,
let's go.
The first section I walked into is just as it is in Dante's. It's lust. The demons down there, they consistently torment. They force people to fornicate with devils until their flesh falls off. I want you to imagine fornicating against your will until the point that your flesh can no longer stay on your bones. And then when you're down to your bones, you just regenerate to experience it again and again and again and again. But there is a particularly difference between those that are tormenting to those who were receiving a specific torment. The Lord allowed me to understand the difference. You see, those that are just getting generally tormented, these were lukewarm Christians that believed that they could fornicate, that they could be in pornography, that they could be of lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and there wouldn't be a consequence. They were given over to their desires, and the devils enjoyed tormenting them more than they did the sinners. You saw that the sinners were tormented, but the ones that had that upon them, and you're probably going, what does that look like? How do you know which ones were Christians and the ones that were not? I'm glad you asked. There's a light that was in them that the devils were constantly trying to rip away from their flesh. They were consuming the glow that was left upon them. Now on to those that were really dark. They got special assignments. Those who raped others in this life were raped themselves. It was a consistent thing, but the demonic thing about it was they were raped by those that they raped. These demons took on this imagery, and this was their punishment forever. I wish I could say it got better, but it got worse. Those that molested children, molested as children, God kept them in the form as children, to experience what they did to other children. So forever they were tormented in hell for the things they did in this life.
I saw an NDE one time. It wasn't this guy, obviously his is a dream, but it was very similar. Like the person who died went to hell, and that's what they saw. They must have been at this level because they were very graphic in what they were talking about and what they saw. I don't think I can say the word. His was cutting out, but let's go with taped, right? And so
Yeah.
these
He's
demons
using that word.
Okay, so these demons were taping these people over and over and over again, like ripping them in half and then regenerating them, putting together, and they just were experiencing eternal just being destroyed over and over and over again, and just pure terror and pain and just the absolute worst things you can think about in that realm of sexuality. And just, man, that is just terrifying to think about.
Yeah, whenever you hear of those things happen, you always hear people comment after you hear about what happened, and they say there's a special place in hell for people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear this and you're like, there is a special place for specifically. And it's just interesting to see the way the devil will use what you did to dishonor God as a way to punish you in his delight.
Yeah.
Like he likes seeing it that much. He repeats the process with you.
And it's these demons, while they're here on the earth, right, until they're permanently sent to this hell, they're trying to inhabit people's bodies, right? They're walking the earth thirsty and hungry and feeling that lust that they can't satisfy while they're here on earth. And so when that time for hell comes, they're just letting it all out, sounds like.
Yeah. There was a TV show on Fox that came out a few years ago. It was based on the Exorcism movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes place as the girl who was possessed. It's her as an adult.
Okay.
And it shows a demon coming into her family's life. She now has kids. And the show ended up being not great as it progressed through seasons because culture got involved in it, and it kind of became a different kind of show pretty quickly. But the first season was actually really good. And the reason why I thought it was really good is because it took a different role. It has actually the demon involved in the life and walking through. And it shows how the demon was working through things to possess a daughter.
Okay. And
it's really clever the way it's written to show how it works, because it's so subtle at first. It kind of finds your flaws, and it goes after you slowly and just lets your guard down. And then finally you submit to something in your life that you're just like, you don't really know it's that big of a sin. And then it's like an anchor is put into you, and like, they're like, okay, I got you a little bit. Like all I have to do is keep on holding on to that. And like, as long as we can keep them focused on that, they're not going to be focused on God.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, what, do you know what the name of the show was?
I believe it's called The Exorcist, but I'll throw it in here. I'll throw the name of it down and throw a little like whatever I can find.
I'd like to watch it. Cause I don't
first or two seasons, but it does get not good pretty quick.
Okay.
So
at least I'd want to see what the concept you're talking about is.
Yeah.
People don't realize these demons are working in our lives all of the time. They're all around us. There's spirits and there's demons, and there's spirit of lust, there's spirit of addiction, there's spirit of homosexuality, and then there's also these demons, right? And just looking at our society in the last 20 years, just really since we hit the year 2000, I can just put it as a barrier. These spirits are growing. You watch this constant just downhill spiral around in society. I mean, just look at the language people use today.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't use it 20 years ago. Look at when you watch a show, how far these themes have gone, right? Like, I'm going to go back to the old days here, but at one point in time, they couldn't have a man and a woman laying in bed together.
Yeah.
Now, every single show opens with a homosexual scene within the first 5 minutes. like full blown, all of it. And it's like,
Yeah.
and that's normal. That's just what is the normal show now. Right. And that's all around us. And it's what people accept. Like you said, these demons start with just little things, and they pick at it, and they get people on to this. And then they can move on to the next thing and the next bigger thing. And it's just a constant downhill spiral. And I feel like our whole entire society has gone down. If we started at the top of the mountain, we are nearing the bottom of the ground.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to go off the deep end a little bit, I do think 2020, that virus that went around, it was this perfect storm for people to slow down a little bit and start paying attention to what's happening. And some people, we all were thirsty for information.
Yeah.
And we wanted to be able to trust in something that would keep us safe. And because no one really knew for sure. And I just kind of feel like after we're coming out of it a little bit, we're seeing some people, I feel like some people were deceived and some people saw the light.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing the divide between those two things, between the people who were deceived are following this agenda that trails with what you were talking about, this be accepting of everything and believe what you're told by authority. And then the people who did otherwise, I believe they're walking out of this and saying, like, I don't believe in the media. I don't believe in the president. I don't believe in my country. I believe in God.
Yeah.
I'm seeing people. I just got a text this morning about a guy that we knew that he was hardcore atheist. And I just found out he's going to church now and he's like giving his life to God. And I'm like, if you met the dude in the press, he's a super good dude. Loved him. But I didn't see him coming to God.
That's amazing.
And yeah. But these guys, like, they drank a lot. And like my job, a lot of the managers, we all drank a lot. Because it was a hard job, and like it's really hard not to navigate it without alcohol. And to see him come out of it, it's amazing. So like there's good stories that come out of everything, even though there's bad things that happen.
Absolutely, that's what God does, right? There's a spiritual battle going around all the time around us. The devil's trying to turn everything to the bad, and then God's there turning things to the good. So, I mean, I think, like you said, during that virus time, it was a perfect time for the devil to grow the spirit of addiction more than anything, because our screens we're finding out, are the most addictive thing in the world. Really? Probably in the history of the world. Our screens are more addictive than nicotine, are more addictive than anything. And the devil is able to use that, right? And able to influence people, but God can also use it. And so the more good content that there is out there, the more available to people good content that there is out there, the better chance there is that people can turn towards the light. So
I like and subscribe to every single Christian thing I see on YouTube. Yeah. Even if I'm not going to watch it again or anything like that, I always like and subscribe to it because I'm like, I want to support it. I want to support it. Like, I'm with you.
More of these that can keep going, better.
Yeah, and it's like there is a lot of great Christian content out there now. Like we've talked about The Chosen in the past. And I know that's not the Bible, but it's like it's content that is not going to have you lead astray by watching it.
Yeah. For anyone listening, Angel Studios recently went public as an IPO. So it's a good stock to buy to support a wholesome studio that's trying to produce good content. Just a thought out there. I bought some of the stock personally to support it and hopefully watch that grow. The bigger Angel Studios can get, I think, the better it is for major production studio type stuff. So
yeah, then Mel Gibson's now they're filming the resurrection of the Christ.
Yeah,
which is really pretty exciting. I know we talked about Jesus's return in the past, and the story of the resurrection I think is going to be amazing because it's going to be like a perfect time. It's so many years later.
Yeah,
that movie came out. The Passion of the Christ came out in like what 2000 or like
it's got to be at least 20 years old, right?
If not longer. And if you listen to the story of Jim Caviezel, he does an interview with Sean Ryan where he talks about everything that he went through with that filming.
And was doing. Now, fifth take, it was bizarre. The wind was blowing hard, and the clouds were. It felt like I could jump up and touch them, And that was very mystical, what was happening in the ground. You could feel something in the ground. And then the wind was blowing, and I couldn't, I could see everybody. There were about 350 people that were around me on a hill. And the wind was blowing, and then I couldn't hear the wind. And I could feel the suctioning occur. And then it was probably more like 3 seconds. It felt like 5, but it was probably less than that. And then boom, I shot me out of my body. I saw the back side, not here. And then I was back. Then Jan Michelini runs over, and I remember looking at him, and all of a sudden I saw his hand blow up. Sparks came out. There was another shot that came down. And then I was in shock. And then so I was on a lot of medication until 2009 was my first surgery at Stanford. And then my second one was at Cleveland Clinic in 2014. And that saved me, saved my life. I died on the operating table. I've never told that, but I died. Dr. Gillenoff, Dr. Griffin were my doctors. They witnessed it. They brought me back. But I was supposed to be here. But the reason why I brought that up is I felt incredible peace and love that's waiting for us.
When you died?
Yes. It was amazing. And I didn't, I had this, just hang on for a second. It was really calm. And then I saw the whole thing. It didn't hurt. The moment it was like taking an egg, cracking it, and then it just came out, and I was dead. I didn't have to breathe anymore. And I was looking at everybody running the room, and they were panicking. And they were doing stuff, but they were really scared.
Wow, you remember this?
No, I saw it. I watched the whole thing. And I watched everything. And then I saw them put the flaps on, and then when I came back, that's when it hurt. But I heard the horn go off, and it didn't hurt my ears. But it was like when I first met God, when he asked me to become an actor, I felt this great peace and love. The reason why I'm talking about it right now is because so many people don't have the peace. They don't have the love. And when I was on the cross, Jesus, he says 7 things. And he says, woman, behold your son. To John, he says this. John, behold your mother. In Aramaic, woman is intatha. And then he calls her also Emi, mother. He differentiates. People have to say, why? The woman is Genesis. I will put enmity between the woman's seed and his. And the Mother Mary is the ark. She carries the Son of God to us. And she is the most beautiful thing there's ever been. And he asks me to love. I'm obeying Jesus. I'm obeying him. Jim, why don't you go to Jesus? Because I'm obeying Jesus when he told me to take. The mother and the sons of Zebedee were at the foot of the cross. The mother of Zebedee, James and John, their mother was there. I'm sure she went, wait, I'm the mother. Jesus often talks about who's my brother, who's my sister, And he also says, I didn't come to bring peace into this world. I came like a sword to divide. And that's the generational sin that's passed on. A lot of us lose our own families. He says, who's my brother? You're my brother. We're not of the same DNA, but we're adopted under God. You're my adopted brother, my sister, family. We can have new families, people that support us in in our love for him. And you'll find that, it's like how Jesus found these fishermen to lead the church. My God, it's incredible. Still looking for good fishermen, still looking for good Davids.
When you had that out-of-body experience on that operating table, when you were revived, was there any time for feeling, oh man, I don't know if I want to go back? Or was it just all of a sudden snap of the finger and you're back?
There's an intelligence with the soul that's bizarre. It knows the distance when God lands in a room. Why that's significant? It just is. Your soul knows another language. So the moment I died, I could feel and understand this. Hang on a second. We've got this kind of a thing.
Okay.
But you're dead. It's all good. But on that side, it's like nothing. It's amazing, And I had an experience when I was doing the Passion, and Jesus visited me a couple times. It was pretty amazing. And one of them was, he was off the left side of my bed, and he was weeping. And it was extraordinary because I was so cold. I had a crucifix, the true cross, in my left hand. It was chained around my wrist, and I was hypothermic, so it was over 90 degrees in the room, and I had tons and tons of clothes on, and I was shaking. And it hurt to shake because my shoulder was torn. And I looked over the left side of my bed, and there he was. And I didn't hesitate. I didn't go, oh my gosh, I'm having an apparition here. I just went, why is my Lord weeping? And I got on my bed and I put my arms around him. And I said, Lord, what's wrong? And he pointed to the ground. And on the ground were all of these cards, jacks, kings, and queens. No number cards, just jacks, kings, and queens. And they had all these face cards all over. And their faces were death faces. Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. You live in me, live for eternal life, But when the leaf separated from the tree, that was their death mask, right before they entered into hell. These people were giving incredible gifts all throughout time. And they started with 1 for me, 9 for God, 2 for me, 8 for God, and eventually 9 for me, 1 for God, and then all for me. This is how the game works. And I knew that he was telling me when I asked him, I don't want them to see me, I only want them to see you. I believe he was warning me. Do you understand that where this could go? Because there's going to be a version of you going to heaven, and then there's a version of you going to hell. And I said, I will never betray you. I know what Peter said. I've learned from them. I will not do that to you. So when you asked me earlier, you've done this, 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 this. Yes, those are good things. But you don't want to have a 0 in your life. 1 times 0 is 0, but so is 1,000,000,000 times 0. You lose everything. So it's a daily thing. And finish the race, and finish it strong.
That's a great way to put it. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So are you interested more in seeing how these layers of hell go?
Yeah,
You
I
wanna keep going into
definitely want to hear
videos?
more. Let's go
All right,
into it.
let's get into it.
Level 3, gluttony. They were all at a large banquet table. They were all being fed the things that pleased them in this life. The things they loved most. Those that love steak, they were being given steak, steak, steak. Those that love sweets and desserts were being given desserts. Those that loved the fine things in life, the breads, the caviars, every time they ate a spoonful or broke a piece, there was more back there. But the difference is that what was pleasure in this earth was being meant for torment. The demons said, "Let them eat cake." That phrase was continuously repeated. Let them eat cake. Let them eat cake, as they forced them to continue to eat more until, I'm going to put it bluntly, their innards ruptured. And then they did it again after they regenerated. A horrible torture. For some, their food, the others that were not ruptured, they did not destroy them with their food. They tormented them with what was in the food. Everything you feared in this life, some of them, they put it in the food. There were some people, as they bit the food, fire ants would come out. Others, spiders would come out. Scorpions would come out. Each torment was customized to the individual for the highest output of torment and torture. So then we go to our next level, greed. And this gives you an idea of the devils we're dealing with. People were force-fed Judas silver. But there was something very disturbing about it. I mean, the silver is already bad enough. As people's teeth bit down on the silver, their teeth shattered and they bled and they screamed. And they were in agony and they choked on the money. But $100 bills of different time periods, by the way. So it's not just U.S. currency. I'm talking all forms of currency fluttered down out of nowhere. Because there's no sky there. It just fell out of nowhere. But here's what I found most disturbing. You would think the coins were the most disturbing. Pink Floyd played the song Money. That song plays in hell on loop in this level. It is a constant reminder to everybody what they traded their life for, what they traded their glory for, what they traded their eternity for. Now you're going to the souls of an older age. This older age was the age of gold. You had some that were consistently vomiting molten gold. They were just continuously throwing up gold in its molten form. And they were being literally consumed until they're like everything else. You were down to your skeletal and then you regenerated. Others were forced to drink molten gold. But here's the thing about those that were forced to drink molten gold. You watched these statues of false gods, of all these different gods, many gods. They would melt them in front of them, and it would be force-fed into them. So just they kept them with their mouths open, and they would have to drink their idols.
I wouldn't have envisioned that would be how greed would be handled in hell, but I guess that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I think that we're finding that if these stories are true and what these people saw is real, the devil's very creative in how he's going to punish you.
Yeah.
And he's going to fine tune the way that maybe God is going to keep, like when he brings you to heaven, you're going to have these things that they say that Jesus went to heaven to build mansions for all of us. And and I've heard stories of like the fine tuning of like, he knows you specifically down to like when they have the wedding feast, when we get there, about how it's like, and like the foods that he knows you enjoy and love. And even down to the plates and the decor, it's all based on your life. And it shows you like your life story. When you're like sitting down to eat, you're looking at this plate and you're like, it's for you. And you almost see your life story built through your wedding feast. And it sounds so amazing and so beautiful. It sounds like hell has that specificity to it as well, to like torment you in the ways that they're going to just eat at you over and over and over again.
Well, it's crazy because earlier in this episode, I talked about how, that downward spiral I was saying that we're seeing with sin, right? And so far, each of the sins that he's talked about with lust, with gluttony, and with greed, look how bad those are in our society right now.
Yeah.
They are so horrible. Like everything is so lustful. Everything has gone so far with it. Just the gluttony is out of control with so many people, and then greed is insane.
Corporate greed right now.
Corporate greed, but just even individual greed. We're starting to see, even in America, which was built on the middle class. That was the pride and hope of our country, was our middle class, and even that's starting to separate. We're starting to become rich and poor, and
Yeah.
it's really going that direction. And I heard a story the other day. Someone I know that I used to know well. I haven't talked to them in quite a long time, but apparently their kid was dating a girl, and they were moving, and this girl's parents were trying to keep them together, and talking about like moving where they were moving because they really wanted their kids to stay together because they believed they were in love, and all this. And then the wife told a different friend, well, no, we made him break up with her because her parents don't make enough money.
Wow.
And these are people who grew up not wealthy themselves, but have done well and become successful now. And
Mhm.
they're saying things like that. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thinking in our country. I'm not saying everyone, but it's moving that direction. And that is so gross and so horrible that that could even be a thought.
It sounds like a movie plot.
Right?
I think it's
And
like it could be real.
yeah, real life, people I know, and I just can't even believe it. But that's where we're at now with this greed. So, man, I hope that they find their way back to God, and that their hearts are softened, because I, I can't even imagine. I can, when he's telling that story, I'm envisioning them having to sit there and live an eternal, agony of this gold being poured down their throats, or vomiting this gold, molten gold. And that's where they're headed with thoughts like that. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring that up, partially because I think you just mentioned Angel Studio stock, right?
Mhm.
And if you're sharing somebody with somebody, hey, I got this insider trading tip or whatever it might be for your life, if you can make money off of it, or if it can lead to these things of sin like greed or whatever, I can give you free access to whatever you want. And when people hear these gems of wisdom, they're like, yeah, give me it. I'll take that. I'll take that. But if you stop them from their sin and say, hey, I'm just trying to warn you, what you're doing is going to lead you in the
Most
wrong
important
direction.
of wisdom.
Some people have to learn it on their own, but if you share it with them, then like I'm not trying to judge you, but I'm just trying to point out to you that this is going to lead you down a path that's going to be dark.
Mhm.
They don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen, especially just the name of Jesus when they're in the middle of it. That name just nails on a chalkboard to them.
Yes, hearts are being hardened, and
Yeah.
eyes are being closed right now. And I don't. It's really hard to see when it's with people that that you care about, because there's a personal connection there, and it's just disturbing.
Well, bit of praise too, though. My daughter, she's in junior high,
Mhm.
and she's been sharing with us the videos at lunchtime. It started right after Charlie Kirk passed away, but one of the kids started like a Bible study during lunchtime, and it was
Oh,
like 2 or 3 kids at first. Then it grew to 10, and now it's like 50 up to 50 kids during their lunch break. They're now studying the Bible as a group during
that's
lunch.
great.
Not to get into my daughter's story too much, but
Yeah.
uh, her friend group also is not probably Christian based, so she's hearing the comments from her friends, and it's interesting to hear what kids perceive things as. Because one of the kids was like, "I think they're starting a cult." Like that was their response to people doing a Bible study. So
Well, that's the devil's got that out there. That's what's easy for people to say now. So
But there's been recent also studies done that a lot of the stuff that we had come from 2020, the gender stuff happening that where kids were being confused, the new studies are showing it's dying off as quick as it came. It's literally like the kids are waking up. Like it's not going to be a trend anymore.
well, I think it's because it's not being glorified as much now, right?
Right,
For a few
right.
years it was all about yeah, and now it's just like no, this has gone too far. Sports are getting ruined, everything's getting ruined. This isn't People aren't just going to sit by and accept it for forever. So,
Well, you can't. Like there's not like you can't ask other people to live in your make believe world.
no.
You
Nope.
can't go to a Comic-Con dressed up as a comic book character, leave it and say, "Hey, I believe I am Spider-Man." And then walk out of the convention and be like, "I need to be treated as Spider-Man. I'm dressed as Spider-Man. I am Spider-Man." You're like,
And for a
"Dude,
couple of years,
you're not
people
Spider-Man."
humored it because they thought, okay, there's a few people out there. But then when it started to become a thing, and it's like, wait a minute, no, we cannot pander to this mental disabilities, right? Like, no, people need help actually if they're really believing these things, they need help. And so we can't continue pandering to it.
Well, to your point, it's Jesus and God shares the perfect example of what a parent's supposed to be.
Hmm.
And loving and kind is definitely one of those features, but you also have to guide people away from doing things that are wrong. And you can't like by participating. I know some parents probably feel like they're loving and holding their kids close, but a, a lie is a lie, and letting people live out such extreme fantasies in their head and letting them live in it's only creating damage in the long run.
Yeah. And I mean, it says in the Bible, it's a sin to not discipline your child.
Yeah,
And so people are so afraid of disciplining their children nowadays. And then to add in that so many parents are just addicted to their phones and don't want to even face the reality of what their kid's doing. They'd rather hand the kid a screen and then be off on their own screen while their kid's on their screen. And they don't realize that their kid's, getting brainwashed into believing some agenda.
yeah.
And they don't want to have to face it. So it's easier to just give them a hug and say, okay, honey, if you want to be a cat and go to the bathroom in a litter box, then I still love you. Let me get back to my phone real quick. I've got a message I need to respond to. I've got to post something on Instagram.
How much of it is attention seeking though? Like if it's the screens that are leading them to this place in their life where they're venturing out this way, it's a lack of knowing God for sure. Like when you're trying to find your identity in other
God's not
things.
involved. That
Right.
leads to all of these things because all of it is evil spirits, right? It's
Yeah.
the whole spiritual battle. We're talking about addiction. We're talking about, not disciplining your children. We're talking about being selfish. We're talking about greed. A lot of people are on their phones because they need to make more money. They need to be more involved in this. They need to be working more and not spending time with their children, not raising their children up the right way. But all of
Yeah.
that stems from not having God in your life, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know how it is today, and I don't know how it was for you, but for me growing up, I was always kind of shocked to see it now. But as I was growing up, like we'd do football, and our
Mhm.
coach would pray for us in the locker room before every game match, like before every game. And during wrestling, because these really serious physical sports, even at a high school level,
Yep.
we'd pray there too. And we got in the Marine Corps, we have chaplains, and we'd pray openly. It just always seemed like God was part of my world. It was never weird. It was never something I even questioned until the last maybe 10 years or maybe 15 years when I started working and I really kind of like had a job that I really needed to provide for my family, that I started going like, I can't bring up God in my scenario right now because if somebody finds it offensive, I don't want to be fired over it. I don't want to be held accountable. I don't think I would have been,
No.
but I also thought it's being professional.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biggest regrets is not taking the time to share who God was during some of these times. Because there's some kids I helped through a lot of things that if I just would have told them about God, it would have been so much better than me just trying to help them face their problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all experienced that, right? And
Absolutely.
that's fortunately we're here right now, and now we see the error of our ways in the past, and I believe we are hopefully at the beginning of a revival. And like you said, that's very hopeful to see that there's 50 kids in a cafeteria doing a Bible study. Like, that's amazing. It's hopeful, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think there's the Charlie Kirk thing's like a 9/11 moment.
Hmm.
It's unifying, and it's I don't can't remember if I mentioned this, but it's about sacrifice. Something
Yeah.
was sacrificed as Christians. So a great person that was a leader for our country died,
Yeah.
unneeded to,
Well,
and it's a sacrifice.
I think hopefully the Charlie Kirk thing can be way better than a 9/11 thing, because honestly, a 9/11 thing was almost more of just a national pride. There was
Mhm.
no God in it, right? The Charlie
Right.
Kirk thing is God and country, and God first. And so I hope it can even be a better thing than what 9/11, the positives that came out of 9/11 obviously is horrific, but
Amen. Yeah, yeah. To elaborate, I'm saying it's a turning. Like I think it's beautiful. As the company's name was called Turning Point.
yeah,
I think it's a turning point where we. It's almost like it was like shaked everyone to be awake. Like
yeah,
you talking about people being on their phones. It's like that moment. Maybe you put your phone down that night and you went and hugged your kids.
yeah. It actually
You know,
awoke a lot of people to the fact of how much evil's in the world,
and
right?
how far things have gotten because you.
Not just the person who committed the crime itself, but the people that were then celebrating it, to
Right.
wake to open people's eyes to that. Like, oh my gosh, like even me, like I know there's a lot of evil in the world, but to see people celebrating the murder of someone just based on their belief is different than yours, man, that showed me we're at a much different place. But yes, let's let's hope that is used for the good, that so many people can see, wow, if things are that bad, we need to make them a lot better, and we can do that through God.
We need to get out of our echo chambers.
Yeah.
Like it's like literally we if you just only hang out with people who have the same point of view as you, you're not ever gonna grow. Like I for people who don't have kids, especially like I'm dealing with a teenager right now,
Mhm.
and it's really tough because um she gets outside influence other than what like we've taught her. So we were teaching her about God as a foundation of her life, and then teaching her as parents, and her peer group is not of that same follow. Some of them are, some of them aren't.
Yeah.
But when you start to see your kid change in a way that you're not influencing, it becomes
Mhm.
hard because you're like, you want to support who they're becoming. But if it doesn't fall in line with your values, then you're put in a tough spot to be like, well, where are they being influenced? Because it's not so much like my daughter has a phone, but she doesn't have access to the internet.
Yeah.
But she knows everything that's happening socially because her friends have access to things.
Yeah.
That's why you're having these kids think they're cats because of this furry situation that it was really underground and closet stuff back even 10 years ago, that it was like a niche, and now
Mhm.
it's being explored in a different way where like people are finding their identity through animals. It's I always hate to say it's demonic because I didn't live my life that way for the longest time, but I'm trying to start using that verbiage because if it's not from God, it's from the devil.
Yeah. And it's just that the devil has more control than he used to have. So things get further from God, to the point that we're now at a stage where it's like, this is just insanity, because it's so far from God that you start accepting a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. And all of a sudden, if God's right here, all of a sudden we're off the screen. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Well,
But again, I think it's coming back.
I ended the last episode with a video that I added on at the end where there's this woman talking about what is truth, and she's trying to explain to her kids what truth is, and she goes through a few explanations, um, and she starts talking about like, you see this table? If I call this a fork, would you say I'm telling the truth? And they're like, no, it's a table. She said, well, look outside. If I said it's raining right now and it's not raining, would you call that truth. And the kids agree, like, no, it's not raining, so that's not the truth. And she shared that that's kind of what the devil does. The devil will take something that you think you're doing right and is justified. Like if you make an evil or mean post rebuking somebody for what they're doing right now, the devil will take that moment and you'll think you did something good for rebuking somebody, and he'll call you courageous through it. He'll make you feel courageous for standing up to something when you should have loved on somebody.
Yeah.
And she goes through like 5 or 6 examples of like how in everyday life you'll think you're doing one thing and the devil will use it in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's just pretty interesting.
And guess who is truth?
Jesus.
Jesus is truth. So
He's the way.
yep.
You ready to roll into this next sin part?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Level 5, anger. As you entered there, you watched people from all different time periods in constant combat. It was combat that never ended. That section of anger just continuously happened forever. Those who are angry at God, he said, they need to see this. And he took me further as those that screamed out at God in anger. Those that screamed out at God in anger, they consistently had brimstone rain upon them. I'm talking like the stuff of Sodom and Gomorrah. Fiery, sulfury brimstone was pouring down upon them like rain. A constant rain they could not escape, and they knew it. They were all on their knees. They were all just accepting it as this molten fire burnt away their flesh and burnt away their member down, once again, down to the skeleton. Then you regenerate again. The first part of this level, I watched the religious and the lukewarm being crucified upside down. Hell hates them more than anybody else. Isn't that wild? The religious, they hate them because they were this close to not having to be there. But the angels are glad that they are. And I say angels up because I mean fallen angels. The tormentors of hell. They work for Lucifer himself. These people were given over to a grand delusion. They're being crucified. Understand, they're being slit open like fish. And they argue amongst each other as they're on their crosses being crucified upside down. And they try to argue about how holy they are versus the other people around them. They have literally no understanding they're in hell, being tormented, being crucified eternally. But their ego, their pride, continuously has them in a state of torment that they will never understand, they'll never break from. The lukewarm are always there saying, why me? I don't deserve to be here. I was a good person. And the demons tell them, he denied you as you denied him. They let you know for eternity why you're there. I witnessed pastors, and I was told they're pastors, who stole from the tithe. They were all given knives, and there were scales before them. They were all forced to cut out however many pounds of silver that they stole from the plate and put it on the scales. The irony of it all is the scales were never satisfied. They were consistently having to cut from themselves because they'd cut away from what God had. Each one in these jail cells, and it was innumerable. The best way for me to explain it, when Neo wakes up in the Matrix, in the movie The Matrix, the first one, and he sees all the pods. Yes, imagine that now for jail cells. Each soul has a jail cell and it has tormentors in it. The first cell that I was allowed to see belonged to false teachers and false prophets. For the rest of their days, they were forced to consume altar coal. And I heard in the spirit, because they blaspheme my word to consider themselves holy, I will allow them to taste the wrath of true holiness. And they consumed this coal eternally, again and again, and just as everything else, until you're down to your frame, and then you're brought back to experience it eternally. I watched serial killers in their cells being killed by over and over by the people that they killed. The demons would take on the forms of the people that they killed, and they would kill them over and over and over. And here's what's interesting. They would kill them in the ways that they were killed. It literally is eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I passed jail cells of people that I knew were witches, warlocks, and wizards. And they were tormented by their own magic that they used in this life. So, level 8. I saw the lake of fire ahead, and I was thrown into a cell. Inside this cell, my mother appeared. I'm here to tell you, my mother, she was very abusive in all ways. When I say all ways, I name a form of child abuse. There you go. Bob's your uncle. You got it. She was coming towards me, angry as she always was, ready to tear me limb from limb. And instantly I was gripped by fear, a fear that I've never known. And as I was beginning to find myself cornered in the cell, that's when I heard the door open, and that angel said, "That is enough. This is only but a taste." He said, "Come with me, let's see the fire." And as we looked out over this cliffside of where my cell was, I saw the lake of fire and everybody in it. I saw people just constantly being consumed by the fire, but they could not be put out. Unlike the others where their flesh went down to the skeletal, these did not have a chance. It's weird to even say mercy. And I know what you're thinking. How is it that some are in the final lake? Because judgment has not yet come. Mm-hmm. And I thought this while I was there. And the Lord said to me, He said, "There's some who have come to my throne room asking for mercy, and they were still found guilty." He said, "Judgment comes to those who challenge a final verdict." I didn't even realize that could be a case, but I guess that makes sense. There's a courtroom of heaven. Of course there is. And then I realized, while in hell, if there's courtrooms of heaven, there's courtrooms of hell. Both of them proceed as they are. So this is not the final party, by the way. This is just the people who are getting started. The lake has not yet begun to fill up because and this is why that picture is so spot on. You only see one or two people. You only see a small handful in areas. The majority of the rest are all demons just hanging out. And at that time, I thought this was intense enough. And I'm walking through the fire, not being consumed, staying very close to this messenger. And he said, "There's one thing left to be seen." In the middle of this lake of fire. So imagine it V's like this. There is a throne. That is the throne of the devil. I had to ask the Lord, I'm like, how is this possible? How is it possible I went to hell and I'm still here? Don't you have to die? And he reminded me, he said, "Ryan," he said, "how many physicians have told you that you have severe sleep apnea and you've ignored them?" He said, "All 3 nights you quit breathing." Mm-hmm. He said, "Now I need you to go see a doctor for a CPAP."
And he waits till the end to say it too. I thought God was just showing him this to try to turn his life around, but he was actually going to hell.
It's the best CPAP commercial ever.
Right? Who can you sell the rights to on that one?
Right.
I thought that was really interesting about the religious,
Hmm.
how far down into hell they are, and how, like you said, this is because they were so close, they didn't have to end up there. And it's amazing because I catch myself falling into that trap sometimes, where you almost start to like judge someone because they believe differently or because they're sinning or whatever. And it's I have to stop myself and just be like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not you. That's not what we're doing here. It's all about your heart, and it's loving these people and
Yeah.
caring for their best and for their salvation. And I think that is an easy trap to fall into, and something people have to be very, very careful of. And just hearing that, I mean, that's as good of a warning as you can get, right?
I think you're absolutely right. I think Jesus made no mistakes in his ministry. I think that he gave examples that would be tested, tried and true. Like he mentioned being a shepherd
Mhm.
and how a shepherd operates and how important it is to love his flock, and like every single one of them counts. I think sometimes we um don't act as shepherds, even though you want to be. Sometimes you get mad. Sometimes you can't understand why you can't get through to people. You don't understand why people can't open their eyes to see what they're doing is leading them down a path that they're not going to come back from. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't say they never would, but it's just sometimes you just see people who they get stuck in that pattern,
Hmm.
and they won't break free of it because they get so caught up into their sins, which pride, envy, wrath, sloth, greed, gluttony, and lust are the seven deadly sins. And he touches on most of them, I believe, in that clip. Um, and I'm sure I've felt every single one of those things in my
Oh,
life.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
And
we
I
deal
just,
with it all of the time.
yeah, it's just one of those things where if you can't stop to like, it's like the Pharisees, like when they talk to Jesus, like they think they're so much better than everyone else. Like you can't act that haughty.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the which one did he say was constantly having to cut off their flesh? The ones that basically were taking from
Money
from
from tithing.
yeah, money from the tithing and using it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
having to constantly cut off their flesh to make the scale even, and the scale's never even. Terrifying. Terrifying.
Yeah, because I've heard the analogy that some people think hell's going to be the going to like spring break, where like it's
Hmm.
going to be sex and rock and roll and drugs and a party. They're like, that's where I want to be, and like it's kind of like hits me hard when I hear that because I kind of had pictured that as my as I was younger. Like when I retire, that's what the life I wanted. I wanted to go on vacations everywhere and live like a spring break lifestyle, and like I thought that was going to be the end all be all. Like that's heaven for me because I was sold that by society, that's having that freedom and that time. And it's interesting as I get older, I'm seeing it's like I want to invest in my kids. I want to have a church life. I want to have a community. I want to have um a longer life with my wife to raise grandkids if we have them. And like these things, just for the perspectives changed so much for me over the last 5 years. It's just astronomical what God's done in
Funny,
my life.
it's funny you say that. When we were in the Marines in Thailand, I remember talking to, he was a British guy that owned a bar in Thailand, and he's telling me about his life, and I'm like, man, that guy, that's the life right there. And he told me he bought the bar for like 10,000 or $15,000 or something like that, and he's telling me about his life. And I remember when we got out of the Marines, I was at one point, I had gone through like a year-long relationship and then ended it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to save up. I'm going to go to Thailand and I'm going to buy a bar and I'm going to have this life. I can just get drunk every day, women all around. Like, that is going to be the life. I'm going to do that. And I don't know how it got derailed, but thank God it did, because I'd be done. I would be done
Yeah.
for it. And man, I'm so fortunate. I just popped into my head. I don't think I've thought of that in 15 years, probably. But Exactly like you said, just how much the priorities changed, what you actually find to be important in this life now is completely
Yeah.
different than when you're walking with God than when you're not.
And it's not like the easiest thing either. Like if you're even walking with God, you'll have moments like of, what's that?
There's still temptation everywhere.
100%. Or you'll find comfort in the things like when you don't feel like God's moving in your life the way you want it to, the things that used to comfort you. It could be alcohol, could be sex addiction, whatever it is. Those comforts you used to find to distract yourself will creep back into your mind. And
Absolutely.
we watch these things about like people who talk, like the last episode we did, they talk about people who are Satanists, and they talk about how the demons work. And it's just they just need a little bit. They just need a little bit to know what you like, and they'll be like, let's do that again. It's the angel and the devil on your shoulder.
Yeah. And it's not even, let's do that again. That is not bad. It's not that bad to do that. If you just do it once, who cares?
Yeah,
You'll be forgiven, right?
dude. I know. I used to drink a lot, and I genuinely prayed to God because I was literally able to drink so much and I'd still function the next day and not even think twice about it. And I know it could be my age getting older, but I prayed one night because I didn't see it being a distraction for me, and it was even blocking my faith. But I was like, God, if you want this out of my life, you take it.
Yeah.
And I've only drank it a handful of times since that night, but every time I even touch it, it's like the worst hangover every single time, no matter if it's just a little or a lot, to the point where I'm like, there's no temptation. Like where I used to drive home from the store and I'd see a gas station, I'd be like, I can get a six pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. And then I drive right past it now. I don't think twice about it. I'm like, not
Yeah.
touching
God
that
made
poison.
sure that juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore.
Right, and weed's the same thing for me. Like I got away from alcohol, and I got a medical license because I was having trouble sleeping, and I had all these good reasons to try and use weed. I found it to be the same thing. Anything that's keeping me from having a clear head, and I'm still not perfect,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to like walk as close to God as I can right now.
Yeah. I had
I want to be
it
a good
with,
example.
I wouldn't say it was ever a problem, but definitely took part in that thing that people do on their screens around lust. I
Hmm.
don't think you're allowed to say the
Hmm.
word. Let's go with scorn. And
Corn is the most popular way that
I like
people call it.
scorn because it's a bad
There you
word,
go.
but yeah.
Lust is
But
definitely,
I prayed over that, and the temptation was instantly removed. Literally have
yeah.
never thought since, like, I have no desire to ever look at that again. I find it, like, the thought of it, disgusting. And that's amazing, just to people listening, that leaving it, putting it out there for God, laying it out right there at the base of the cross. He's willing to help. He wants to see you get better from any of these things, and he will remove the temptations. He will heal you instantly, your mind, your body. It's miraculous, but he can take what had complete control over you and he can take it away in an instant. And I've seen it happen for myself, and I know Steve has too.
Amen, brother. I'm definitely going to use that as the way to get out of this episode.
Yeah.
I think it's well said, and
Okay.
I'm gonna add this really long outro to our video that I hope if you're here still, the real ones who watch our episodes and then make it all the way to the end. It might be my mom. I don't know who else, but um, there's an NDE that I'm gonna add at the end of this, and it literally I've gone through some hardships recently in my life where like this NDE is of this gentleman that it hit me so hard, and it kind of made me address some of the things that even though I'm sharing, like I'm giving up alcohol, I'm giving up these things, there's still these other sins in your life like pride and you don't give it all up to God all the time. And you think you
Mhm.
can handle things, and like the more I take on my shoulders, the more I get crushed by the world. But the more I have to do things with God, it immediately lifts things up off my shoulders, and I don't feel that pressure anymore. So I'm going to be praying for all of you guys that this episode reaches the right people. I know Josh will be too.
Yeah, I definitely will. And just remember, exactly like Steve said, God can be your strength. God can be your peace. God can be your comfort. he can be your everything, and you just have to give it to him. You have to ask him. You have to lay it all down there for him, and he wants to take it. He wants to help you. He is there always. And I hope you can find peace in that.
All right, brother. Well, have fun in San Diego, because we didn't address that in the beginning of the show like we did last time. Like, he's on vacation this week. I'm at home. So have fun in
Yeah.
San Diego. And for all the viewers, we love you guys.
Love you guys.
Bye.
See you next
Bye.
week.
So you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's
do
jump
it.
in.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to start out with my early life, because without that, it doesn't give you a barometer of really what happened. And a ton of chaos in my life, a lot of really hard things. I was abused from a close male friend for several years. I mean, I'm talking from sexually to just physically, spiritually. And he said, if you say anything, we'll blow up your house and it's all your fault. You're being punished for these things. I was so confused by what things were. And then I went on a scout camp. We went up one of those canyons that are where they funnel into nothing, and you can look up and there's 200 feet. They're beautiful. But I was with the scoutmaster, and we went up there, and voice told me, Dave, you need to run to the tree you saw. You can't wait. And there's 5 kids and the scoutmaster and me. And he said, you can't wait. You can't tell them. You can tell them once, you run to that tree. And it was such a pure, I knew the voice, and it wasn't a booming voice, just a sweet voice. And I just picked the kids behind me and put them on the other side of me. That's how narrow it was, and ran to that tree. As soon as I got to the tree, I could hear like a whistle and like a freight train coming. And this wind was blowing so hard, it was like a hurricane. And then the water came, and boulders and rubbish came. And I had climbed up high on the bank. It's the only place that widened out. And there was one tree that stuck out there. I went up there and I wrapped my legs around that tree. Told me what to do. And then I saw a kid shoot out. Just kind of shot towards me. And he came by. And I was screaming for him, reach my hand, grab my hand. And it was so loud. And I saw his eyes as he went by. I missed him by about 2.5 feet. And then he gurgled down in the water. And I knew he was gone. Another kid shoots out. And this kid, I'm screaming harder you got to swim. Anyway, kid after kid, the last kid that came, I screamed at him, and I went out as far as I could on the tree and held onto the tree. And he came by, and I looked at him just like I'm looking you in the eye. And I had to touch his hand now, and he's looking at, I knew I was watching him die. And he wings by, and then the scoutmaster comes up by. He's a big guy. And he gets to me, and I wing him and throw him in the tree. And he was spent. And so I tied him in the tree with my belt because he couldn't sit there. As fast as the water went up, it went down. And I ran out to get help. And as I went out, there was a boot sticking out. And I just thought it was a boot. I went to grab it, and there was a foot in it. All the rest was under the mud. I went down further, and I could see some fingers. I mean, it was so traumatizing. And so here I'd seen all these miracles, but I could do nothing to save them. I got nothing. And then I could never figure out, God's there, but you let this happen, and it's to me. And you couldn't even, I saved one out of them. And then I got a medal. They gave me this medal. And I took that medal home, and I pounded it into oblivion and burned it, threw it away. Who gets a medal for what? People die. Why would I get a medal? And I mean, I buried that so deep. I didn't remember that for a long time. And I just didn't want to deal with it. And so things like that happened. I would have these miracles kind of happen. And in my life, I got married. I had 2 wives, and both of them got killed. And so I have 5 amazing kids that they had to have gone through hell and back with me. I had these amazing, just unbelievable things happen, and things that I knew God was there. But then I had these such traumatic things that I thought, either I don't deserve them, or I'm not worth it, or too dumb to get it. And so I don't know if you say bitter, but I was just lost. I'm 65. I'll be 65 on the 8th of this month. And I got into drugs really late in life. I was 45, 50, and my wives were taken, and I was on my own. What does a single man in the church? None of it made any sense to me anymore, or it didn't work. And so, and I was a landscaper, great designer. I had all the toys, huge house, Corvettes, boats, I had all the toys, all the things that should have made you happy, but none of that did much for me. And I got into drugs, and it's funny because you just start down this little gate in the drug path, and I was just trying to numb myself, I realize now. But that spiraled me into such a horrible, horrible place. And my parents' family, everybody tried to get me right, get me into rehabs, and I'd be clean for a couple of years, and then somehow I would get sucked back in. And each time you go back in, you go in quicker, deeper, and worse off. And so I was to the point where I lost everything I had, all the money, even I was living with Shreya and Michael again. My poor sister got stuck with me, and I'd lie about everything. I was the best liar on the planet. I could sell you ice cubes if we were lived in Alaska, and I stole from them. I stole guns. I stole heirlooms of theirs. Everybody I did. My kids all called me Dave because I wasn't a dad. I didn't deserve to be called Dad. They called me Dave. And no one would have wanted to see me coming because I was going to take something, I was going to lie to them, and just to see who I was and what I'd become. And I then call it my destiny of the stop signal, God's stoplight. They put a new stoplight in where we drove home, and it was one of those, you had to stop at the stop to turn and then wait till it went green. You couldn't go right on they changed it to that, but not me. I went right on through. So I got pulled over, and I tried to lie my way to that. But by that time, I had like 25 warrants, bench warrants and things. Not anything violent or anything. More was drug paraphernalia and just stupid things. I didn't have a driver's license for like 15 years, so I just kept getting tickets. So it got to be where it was thousands and thousands of dollars on all these warrants and everything. And then it got to be where I was not bailable. They were going to make me deal with all, there's so many of them. And I was in every drug. My drug debt was about $3,000 a month, at least. And I was basically pillaging and robbing to get that. So I get taken to jail. And the first day in jail, my blood pressure was so high that they actually sent me to the real hospital because it was so high. They were worried something was going to happen. And on the way back, 2 kids were my jailers or whatever that took me, and they were flirting. And I got out of the van. It was dark, and I tripped over a curb, and I was shackled around my waist to my wrist and then my feet. So I had no way of catching myself. I just had to turn and hit the curb with my back. And I was laying there, and another guard coming in for his shift picked me up and took me in. And it shot such tingles and stuff up and down my back. I couldn't walk. My legs would give out after that. And they all thought I was faking something or whatever. Or like, you just got back from the hospital. You're not going again. And they knew I was on drugs and stuff, so they just thought a lot of it was withdrawing. And I don't want to get into too much of how horrible the jail is, but what you think it is not what it is. It's as bad as any jail you see in a foreign country. You get no help whatsoever. None. And I hit so hard. I was black and blue from my shoulder blades all the way down to my feet. Black is black. And I had this big open sore on, and they wouldn't even look at it. You had to fill out this kite thing to have them look every morning. They come in and say, physical trauma or whatever. And if you don't get there in time, they just walk out. And I had to fill it out right. Well, they had lost my glasses at the hospital, so I could not see to fill it out. And I tried to fill it out, and I went to hand it to the girl one day, and she says, it's not right. Tore it up and threw it in my face. And I'm in excruciating pain. I didn't know at the time. I know now I had a heart attack. I couldn't walk. I walked into the jail, but now I had to have a wheelchair for them to get me around. And I was sick. I was withdrawing. There's no question about it. I was throwing up this black kind of bile, and I had to crawl to the bathroom. And after being in there about 30 days of trying to get help, didn't even get looked at by a doctor. No one would look at me. Nobody would help me because I couldn't fill that out right. And they'd say, that's not my problem. And my family would come to even try to help, but they would tell them I didn't want to see them because I couldn't get to the window. So they said I rejected their visit, which was all not true. And I was suffering. And I'd done a lot of things, so I deserved to be in jail. I got all of that. But I didn't think I deserved to die in jail. And so it got, after being in there about 30 days or so, I finally got to, I was so upset and hurting so bad, and I would get, if I stood up, I would pass out. And the crazy thing is the only compassion I got in there was from the other inmates. The only thing that, you can't tell what you're eating. They have to tell you what it is. And my bunkmate, his job in the cafeteria was to cut the maggots out of the potatoes, and then we ate them. That's what his job was. And I got food poisoning, so if I smelt something coming, I would throw up. I lost 45 pounds in there. I could not eat, it was so god-awful. And I finally got to be, I was so weak, and I told one of the guards, give me a bullet or get me help. So then, instead of getting me any kind of help, they put me in the nut board house in the jail, which, don't ever go to nut. You don't ever want to be in that part. And what that means is and there was a whole bunch of guards there, and the nurses were there when they put you in the intake of that. You get stripped naked. They do the cavity search, all those nasty things. And that's when they saw my wounds open, and I can't walk, and the big oozing sores. And you're naked. And the guy said, wow, look at that. Maybe we need to do something. And this was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And she said, well, there's no doctor here. We can't do anything. I'll have to just wait till morning. And they just throw me in it. It's about an 8x8 cell. It's a metal bed. It's freezing. There are no blankets. It's like you get this canvas thing that those old-time tents would be made out of, that you can't, gives you no warmth, and it's so hard around you, you don't want to, that's all you have. And then you get bread and water 3 times a day. They're basically just punishing you so you'll never say you have anything mental again, so they don't have to deal with you, best I can surmise. I'm sitting in there naked as a jaybird, freezing my butt off, sitting on this cold slab, and thinking, is this what I have become? Is this what I am? I had been given so many wonderful things, and this is what I have become. And I was so mentally racked, and just, I had no one to help me. My family would have helped me, but they couldn't even get at me. And their best solution for me was to leave me in jail, to where they at least knew I was safe, they thought. And it's what I needed. That's how bad off it really was. And everybody would have hoped that would make me better or well. But if somebody had to bet, when I was able to ever get out of jail, if I would have been off drugs, not one person would have said, because that's how bad I was. They all had tried many times rehab, everything that they possibly could. And it got so bad that I prayed, and I said, God, you owe me nothing. Nothing. I said, I mocked you basically my whole life. I had everything. I saw you. You owe me nothing. But please, just let me die. I said, this is hell. Hell cannot be worse than this. Please just let me die. This square head wouldn't go in that round metal toilet thing to even get that done. Couldn't even get that done. And I don't know how long I prayed for it. I was freezing and sick as sick. And I'm praying, and I can't get, have you ever been where you can get no help? There's no man that can help. There's nobody that can help you. And I had done it myself. I had ruined my life. I had ruined every person that would love to help me. I had made it impossible. And I hated me. I wanted nothing to do with me. And I'm sitting there thinking, how did you let this happen? How did you go from that to this? And I'm just praying and I'm praying. I was physically, mentally, spiritually tormented. And I could have had it so much different, but I didn't. And I'm sitting there praying and praying and praying. And all of a sudden, my dad is there. And my dad had been dead for 7 years. And he's right in my face, just like you, that close. And he tells me, you look like crap, Dave. You really look awful. And he said, your mom's waiting outside, but she couldn't even stand to see you. Come in and see you. You look so awful. She's dead also. And he said, we worked really, really hard to get you in here. Honestly, I was pissed. I was thinking, can you not? I'm on death's doorstep. And you were telling me you worked really, really hard to get me in here. And he said, we tried so many ways to help you. All of us did. We did everything we could to make you, help get you right, help you figure out your addiction in your life, and you wouldn't have it. You wouldn't do it. There's nothing you would have. And he said, this is kind of it. This is your choice. And I'm here. I know you, I love you. I know you can do this. I know you're better than this, that you were made to be much more than this. I know you can do this. And he said, I will leave now, but you can get better. And as he left, and as I'm sitting there just praying again to die, because I was so sick and so wrecked, I got hit with a beam of light that was like a pointer, like a laser light. And I looked, and it hit me right kind of on the head. And it was hot. It was going to burn. It got hotter and hotter. And as I looked at it, before long, Christ was there. Christ himself. Not in some vision. Not in some dream. The Lord himself was right there, this close to my face. And he's looking at me with those eyes that just go right through you. And he looks at me and he says, and I knew it was Christ. And I said, why would you come for a piece of crap like me? Why would you come here for me? And he said, Dave, I've been here the whole time. I've just been waiting for you to accept me and look to me and for you to fulfill what I know you can be and what I built you to be. I made you. I know who you are. I know what you're to do. And I love you. I've always loved you. And he said, I know things look really bleak. I know you have no hope. I was hopeless. And you don't think you're worth anything. But I think I know what you're to do. And I knew you would have these lows, and I sent you angels. I sent you the elite of God to be around you when you were weak, to carry you. So you could make it to where you, and by then I was at least free of the drugs, and I was at my knees, and I was just grabbing his ankles. I could see his wounds in his feet. I just said, I'm too far gone. And he says, I know what you've done. He said, I know why you did what you did. And he says, you can be saved through me. And I know you can do this, but it's your choice. You can choose to have what you have and live what you have, or you can ask for help and you can be one with me, and us together can make your life be the most unbelievable thing that you can't even imagine what that would be. And I told him, I'm done. I won't do another drug. I'm done. I don't want to be this. I don't want to. I know I can be better than this. And I'm done. And then I caught myself. And I said, whoa, Lord. I'm promising you something I don't know that I can promise you. Because I really have tried to beat this. And I don't seem to be able to do it. I have tried. And he says, I understand. And he says, you're going to have to do it my way this time, not your way. You're going to do it with me. And he said, you can't do it the normal David B. way where you tell everybody what they want to hear and then smooth them over and then go do whatever you want. That's not going to work. He says, you're going to have to ask my help. And then he said, you and I together can defeat this and make you whole. And he said, but you do what I demand. He said, I don't expect you to be perfect. He said, I built you. I know you. You won't be perfect one day in your life. He said, I don't expect perfection. What I expect you to do is to try. And you try with all you are. And when that's more than you can do, you ask, and I will make up the difference. And he told me to get up, to rise, and I was looking at his eyes are they see right through you. And to me, they were blue-eyed. But he was in his robe that you would think he would be in, and he's smiling kind of the whole time. And then this is the most amazing part, if you think it could be greater than that. He took his hand, and he put it inside my butt, not over my heart like you do the flag. He grabbed my heart inside my body. He grabbed it. And I'm thinking, Lord, whoa. You could tell my heart couldn't beat. It couldn't for that. And he grabbed it. And he says, your heart's broken. And I thought, broken heart, contrite spirit kind of thing. And he said, no. He says, your heart broke. And he says, you've also had a change of heart. And he said, stand up. He said, your sins are forgiven. Which was so amazing to me that he would take that and knew that I was done. And he said, sin no more, go forth and do good. And you ask, and it will be you and I together from now on. And he said, you remember that. And he said, I will see you again shortly, and I will prepare your path. Just have faith and ask, and I will prepare your way. And then he took his hand out of my heart, and then he the same way he came in, he went out. And to me, it was only moments later that the doctor came in. It was morning, and the doctor came in, and he saw my wound, my big bruise, and and he looks at me and he says, "What the happened to you?" And he said, "Who beat you?" I said, "No one beat me. I fell, but they wouldn't give me help." I told him all these things. And he looked at the nurse and says, "This is not how," and he's got all these cussing and said, "This is not how it's supposed to work." He said, "How come you didn't call all this?" And then they took my blood sugar, and my blood sugar was so high it wouldn't read, which means it was over 500. I didn't even know I was diabetic. And then my blood pressure was like 70 over 40, or it was really low. And he said, he needs to go to the hospital, and not the way we take him, by ambulance. He needs to go, and he needs to go now. And you see different doctors in jail. It's the only time I saw that doctor. I don't know who he even is, but sent me back to the hospital. Again, when I got there, they're all shackled and everything again. And I got in there, and as soon as they found out what I was, they cut all my clothes off. And I've got IVs in my knees, my arms, and there's all these people running around, and they're doing these tests. And then there's a little Oriental doctor there, and she could overhear the radio because they're right there. The guards are with you all the time, and I'm still shackled to the gurney. And the guy from the jail was saying, "Well, when's he coming back?" And they said, "Oh, I think they're about done." And she got on that radio and just blistered the guy. Said, "He's on death's doorstep." When I got there, my bottom number was like 5, and the top was, he says, he's at death's doorstep. When you brought him here, he's now mine. I will tell you when he's coming back, and it won't be soon. So tell your baboons to take the cuffs off. Where is he going? So he can't even walk. He's going nowhere. Tell him to go in the corner and sit there and shut up. And they did all that. And I don't know what they found. I know they did a thing in my back, and I needed to have something done to my back. And I was taken to intensive care, was there 4 days, and then in the hospital another couple of days. And my family knows nothing. They won't tell them. But that saved my life just because I ate food that was food and was taken care of. Because I think that was my last night if the Lord wouldn't have grabbed my heart and if I hadn't have made the decision to change. And I actually got well. I went back to jail. I was in jail the total time 40 days and 40 nights, which is kind of crazy. But it wasn't wonderful when I went back there, but I knew God had me. I no longer cared. I knew everything would be okay. I saw Shirley Ann, my sister, came and we got to talk. The miracle part about that is the Lord had to touch her heart. You know, they wanted nothing to do with me. The Lord told me when he said, I told him, no one's going to believe me. No one's going to believe a word I say. I wouldn't believe me. They're going to say it's just some story. I don't even dare tell the story. No one will believe me. And especially, I meant my family. I didn't mean like this. And he said, I'll never forget this. He said, I will tell them. I will be the one that you speak. He says, you can't even muck it up. He says, I will tell them that it's true, and they will know. And the ones that need to know, I will tell. Those that do not believe or do not hear, it's on them. It's not on you. He said, you'll know when to open your mouth. And how she knew that I was done all of a sudden, and they got me an attorney. There's money, all that involved to get me out, and how he had to touch the right people, and even the attorney, and even the judge, even the prosecutor. I got out on it was a miracle how I got out. All of these things that I didn't think would ever be solved were solved. And they knew. For some reason, from the judge, prosecutor to my attorney knew. He said, I've been told lots of stories. This is my attorney. He said, I know when I'm getting, he said, but for whatever, I know you're sincere, that you're done. I'll do everything I can to help you. And he really did. Saved my life. So now I get released from jail. Who do I go back to? Who do they release me to? My jailer, Shirley Ann, my same sister. Her and her husband take me back, which is a miracle in itself that they would even, shouldn't have. And they helped me get all of those things taken care of. But then about 2 months after that, I get these really weird, nasty sores on my finger. Just big open wounds. And her husband's a heart surgeon. And I called and showed it to him, and he says, you need to get to the hospital. You got something wrong with your heart. I'm going, I didn't understand. He's the smartest man I know. He really is an amazing spiritual man, her husband. And the funny thing is you get in religion, he's a Catholic, and none of that matters. It just matters how you know God. How that all evolved is amazing. Nothing's by happenstance. But I go to the hospital, and the nurse, they're going to send me to a dermatologist. Shirley Ann comes and says, well, my husband thinks it's this, and this. They check my heart, and they said, oh, you're not going anywhere. And I end up having to have 6 bypasses. I had a hole in my heart and a bad valve. And I'd had a heart attack. They didn't even know if my heart was viable to even have surgery. He had saved my life again. So I got MRSA in the hospital too, so I'd get better from all of that. I ended up going into surgery after everything, I got stable enough. And I'll never forget, as I was going into surgery, I asked the Lord, am I good? And he said, yeah, I'll be there. I got you. Don't worry about it. I will be there. And it's funny because people say, you talk to the Lord? And I go, yes. I talk to him like we're talking. And I hear him. Ever since I didn't always in my whole life. I was the worst. I never heard anything, and I had to do it myself. I was horrible in so many ways. And so he told me, and he didn't have to, but I remember the nurse, it was a male nurse before I went in there, and he told me all these things, and they said, I'll see you when you come out. And I says, "Are you sure?" And he didn't answer me. And then he did something else and he said, "I'll see you when you come out." And I said, "Are you sure?" He did not answer me. So I was nervous going in, but I go into surgery, and I was in surgery for 8.5 hours with 2 different surgeons because I was so complex, and I didn't know all of that even. I didn't worry about it because I knew the Lord had me. I was no longer, he had me. I didn't have to worry about it. And Shirley Ann had me. So I could have been in better hands. So I'm in surgery. I come out of my body during surgery, and it's the most crazy, surreal thing. You look down and you see this guy with his chest all open with these metal things, and the 2 doctors were saying, "He's in trouble. We've got to balloon him." That's how dumb I am. I thought they were going to make me a balloon heart or something. I didn't get what it was. Anyway, and then I looked to the right of me again, and there's my dad again. Good old dad. And he looks at me and says, "Get in there, you nuthead. Where do you think you're going?" Just like the day he died, I get goosebumps from that one. And he said, "You can go for a while. You can go to see your mom, your sister, and others. You need to learn some things, but you have to come back. You have no choice." My kids were in the waiting room. I went through the wall. You just go through the wall. And I told my kids where they were sitting. There was a lady in there that my grandkids were acting up. I told my daughter what book she was reading, the character in the book, and the page in the book, because I was over her shoulder. She freaks her out. Like, they don't even like to hear that. And so I saw what was happening there. And then I went back, and I call it my transport. And it was like this, a bubble that was just kind of a little bit bigger than me, but it just engulfed me. And it was the most comfortable ride. And I could see her all the way around, and I could see up. But before I knew it, I was going fast, just upwards. Not in a tube, just shooting. I was really bright and white, but shooting through this blackness. And then I smacked a bigger orb than mine. Like, I call it a bus. And I hit it hard. I smacked it. And I thought, I'm going to get a ticket in heaven. I've got one everywhere else in my whole life. I got to get one in heaven. And then I get out of it, just dissipates, and I'm there. And the people on the bus, I knew. And what took me up, I could tell there was a higher power. I could tell there was an intelligence pulling me. And it was the most amazing feeling. But one even asked me if I wanted to go dance with her. Because I said, well, no, I don't think I should go. And then my mom was there. And my Aunt Lois was crippled my whole life. She had spinal whatever her whole life. And she said, look, no crutches. And she sticks us her arm and says, let's run. And she just ran and left me. And then my sister had to come and get me, said, Aunt Lois has a good go button, but not a very good stop button. And took me back to where we were. And then, as I'm there, and everybody there doesn't talk like we are. You don't use your mouth. It's like a download to your heart, and it's very quick. And then my dog, Walter, my lab, I loved him. I cried for a month when he died. He comes running up to me. And Walter tells me, I love you. I've missed you. I'm your pet, and I will be your pet forever. And I can't wait for you to get here for reals. But you know you got to go back. But when you get here for sure, I'll come find you, and I'll be yours forever. And you know you have to change or you won't get back here. And then he just trots off. But I'm kind of amazed by that whole thing. And then the streets really are gold. Their gold is perfect gold, and their colors are so vivid. The lawn, I'm a landscaper and a gardener. I'm looking at that like, who did this? I thought I could be a gardener in heaven, but I'm not that good. And they even smelt, they gave you life. You would take these deep breaths like you do when you're at the dentist to try to get rid of pain from laughing. But it's feeding you. The plants are feeding you, and the lawn's feeding you, and you're trying to get more in and more in. And you can tell from each plant that they gave you, some of them, their own life for you to live, to be fed. And there's a love transaction in there that's hard to even describe. And you know you're surrounded by love and loved ones, like love I've never felt before. And I'm walking up, I call it the whole path, and I see aunts, uncles, but they're all 30. My grandpa, 30. My grandma, 30. One grandma came up to meet me and she says, "You've never met me before. I'm your dad's mom. I was gone before you were born. I just wanted to meet you and say, they all told me certain things that I needed to change, and that they all had faith in me and they knew who I was, and that I needed to go back and fulfill the promises I'd made before." And then she said, "You look so much like your dad." And I said, "Yeah, Dad's pretty good looking, wasn't he?" And he said, "Oh, you're a character." And then she went off to my grandpa. And then my Uncle Ed comes riding up on his horse. And he's like, my Uncle Ed was kind of like Hoss Cartwright, if you know that big guy. And he comes up and he hops off, and his horse looks at me and he said, "I'm Snap." I go, "Okay." And I was so unused to all of that. And then my aunt Thelma was at a far, and she yelled, "Now, Ed, you can't spend time with him talking. Just tell him what you got to and leave." And he says, "I'll take the time. You just hold your horses and stay." Just like they left. But they were all 30. And when I got back and was well, I went to a reunion and my cousins were there. And I asked him, "Does Uncle Ed have a horse named Snap?" And they just started crying. They said, "How would you know that? That horse was dead before you were born." He said, "Yeah, he was a cantankerous horse, and he would grab anybody that rode him besides Uncle Ed and bite him with their teeth and yank him off the saddle. Wouldn't let him ride. Only Uncle Ed." They said, "How do you know him?" I said, "He's the most arrogant horse I've ever met." And they just started laughing. And they said, "Well, I have to." It's funny how the Lord gives you these things to come back with so they know it is what it is. And then I saw so many different people, but as I went along further, it was kind of a narrower area, and there were these gates that went through, and they were huge, huge gates, and they were solid gold. And I could hear singing, but I not so much singing. I could hear classical music like Beethoven, and I could hear that all the time. And I could see over the next ridge, I could see things being like, the best thing I could guess is that was people being sent to Earth. I'm not quite sure what that was about. But as I went to go through those big gates, I saw the Lord standing there again. And the Lord's overwhelming. There's a physical presence that is not just a spiritual or it's such an intense that I don't have the words to tell you what that is. It's not that I can't. I just don't. I'm not smart enough to tell you what that is. But it's the most intense feeling, an intense feeling of love that you've ever felt in your life. And then I'm walking through the gates, and then he puts his hands out like this to show me his wound. And I know who he was. I was on my knees again. And he said, "Please fill my wounds." And I was taken back by that. Like, I don't need to. I know who you are. I don't need to. I know who you are. And he said, "No, please. Please fill my wounds." And so I got up, and as soon as I touched the wounds on his hands, I instantly knew the pain and the suffering he had to take for me. Just me. That time in jail when I couldn't take it 2 seconds longer, I was so done. I was so spent that he made whole, that he readily took for me. And I only had to take it for a few seconds. And he said, "I didn't do that to show you my pain. And I didn't do that to boast." He said, "I did that to show you how much I love you and what I would do for you. And that was just a small part of me telling you your sins were forgiven that I took for you, all out of love. Everything that I have is through love. Everything my Father's is from love. Everything that is made whole is of my love." And there's some things that happen then that I won't share. That it's sacred to me. It's sacred to anyone. And I won't mock God. It's not something I shared. I'm not saying that because I don't want to share it. I'm telling you that because it's so precious and sacred to me. What I saw, what I was given, and things that I saw to come on the earth, and the things that I needed to do, things I had promised I would do. He had to show me what I promised to do and what I needed to do. And if I didn't do it, no one else could do it. And he had built me and made me to do this. He said, I know you can do this. I made you to do this and to walk with me. And again, he said, when it's greater, I don't expect you to be perfect. You won't be perfect. And I don't expect you to do any more than what you're to do. But you and I have no limits. There is no ceiling to what you and I together are. You are who you are. But you and I together is not the same person as you. And if there's anything that you need to learn, it's that. And to ask. I cannot help you unless you ask. You surmise all the time, I'm just going to take care of you or be there for you. You need to ask me, and I will be there. And I really realize that's so I can build a relationship to now where I talk, and I spend enough time. Now when I pray, I take as much time listening, not saying a word, as I do praying, for him to tell me things, and it's changed my life in so many ways. And I remember telling him, Lord, I'm stupid. I'm dumb. I can't do what a kindergartner can do. I've done all these horrible things to people I love and ruined so many things that I can't fix. I can't fix this, and I've screwed it up so bad, and I'm stupid. He said, I'll never forget it. He said, what you think are your strengths, I look at your weaknesses. And what you think your weaknesses are your strengths. And he said, remember what I told you. You by yourself are what you are. But you and I together, nothing is impossible. And you will see things, and your brain, what you call stupid, was built so you hear me. And built so you hear the angels of God that are set, things that surround you, things of the earth you'll hear. That so-called stupid brain. And never call yourself stupid. Again. And I loved you so much I gave you that brain. I built that for you. And I know you. And he said, you'll always have the choice between evil and good. Satan also knows who you are. Satan knows what you're about. Satan knows what you mean to me and what you're built for. You will be attacked, and your whole life you'll have things that are difficult and things that you're going to need only through me and us together will you withstand them. But I will be there, and I will give you again the elite of God to help you and be surrounded by, and you'll never have to do it alone. And I can remember my mom coming and saying, does he have to do this? And my dad coming right behind her, and he said, surely we'll be there with him. And of course he'll do this. He promised he would do this. And then I'll never forget my dad telling him, why would you want to take that away from him? And she said, it's so difficult and hard. And I could see why my mom wouldn't have faith in me in ways, because I was a character. And the Lord said, I will be there. And then he laid his hands on my head, and he says, I'm going to give you the gift of discernment. He says, it's the greatest gift I can give you to go back with. He says, and he blessed me with discernment, and that I would see evil where evil was, and it could not hide from me. And part of my calling to go back was to eject evil from the earth. And there's other things that I won't say. And it's not I'm always so afraid that I'll come across to be egotistical or holier than thou, and I never mean it to be like that. I know the Lord, it's almost like I told the Lord, you took the worst person to have to build this around, and that's me, and then you've got a lot of work to do, because there's me and there's you. You're gonna have to be the bus driver, the every part about it. And he said, I love you. And then he put his hand on my heart, only this time on the outside, and he said, I will be there. I will always be there. And then he says, you need to go now, but always remember the love you felt here, and it can be there you ask, and it will be there. I walked down and I saw my mom where my transport, I'll call it, was, and my mom was there with infants. It's the only time I saw any infants. Everybody else was 30-ish. And there were like 20 infants, babies, and my mom wasn't a great babysitter, and my grandma was there, and my Aunt Lois and my sister, Radine. And I go, what are you guys doing with these babies? And my mom said, these are very close relations of ours that their mothers miscarried them. And they're waiting here for their mothers to get here, and they won't get a day older till their mothers get here to raise them. And I knew that had to be important for her to show me that. And I really realized since then, I've told many women, I just say it, and they'll break down and say, I always thought that I was wicked or did something wrong to have that happen. And it's totally the opposite, because those children did not even have to come at all. They were so perfect that they didn't have to come to be tested. But that mom had to be perfect to hold them in their womb. Her heart had to be perfect. And it actually was a great gift of God to let them be, and they earned it. It's some gifts are given from God. Many things you bank, you earn. I tell my sister all the time, well, you bank that in heaven. It's almost like he has to give you that because you've done all these wonderful things. When you need help, you take that out of the deposit of the blessings you've made. That's why he can bless you. And I just know that was very important. And my mom says, you've got to go now. You can wait no longer. There's many other things up there that if you had all day, I could tell you. When I tell you that's all a download, I realize we only have the capacity to understand God's God, and he has to dumb it down. I even told that to the Lord when he was giving it to me, because it's nothing by mouth. When you're telling people, you have to say the truth. You've been taught your whole life to manipulate with your words and to manipulate what you got. You cannot do that here. You have to say exactly what you mean, and they have to get exactly what you mean. It can only be truth. And then he said, never ever lie. Not even a little white lie to help someone. A lie will fall apart always. Always build with truth. Figure out a way to say it that is positive and truth, never a lie. And I realize I get these downloads all the time since then. And then my mom says, you can't wait any longer. You've got to go back, and you got to go now. I said, are you going to ride with me in my trip? She says, no, I can't ride with you, but I'll meet you there. And then I was engulfed by that same transport, and now I'm going back to Earth. And as I'm going back to Earth, it's getting heavier. I'm feeling heavier and heavier and colder and colder. And my mom and Aunt Lois said, we'll be there for you. It's going to be painful and it will hurt. You'll wake up, but we'll be there with you. And as I got back to my body, I got out and my mom's there. And the last thing my mom told me was, learn to enjoy physical touch. You won't have that for a long time, so enjoy physical touch. And then she said, and enjoy pain. That took me a long time to figure out what that meant. I realized that through pain and refinement is how we find God in many ways and find ourselves. And I finally realized what she meant by that. And she says, we'll be there with you. And then my dad was standing there and he says, you can't wait any longer. You got to get in now. And there were two beings standing just watching over my body. I'm not quite sure who they were, but they were looking down over me. And he says, you can't wait another second. You got to get in now. And I went to jump back in my body. And how do you get back? I've never done that before. And I'm in my body and I'm looking down. I could see my dad above me. And the two doctors that were there were going to go tell my family I was dead. They'd been trying for 40-something minutes to get me off the bypass. They tried several times. In fact, the doctors, he came to the house after I got well. He came to the house to see me. He said, I need to know what happened. He said, I know what death is. I know what death looks like. And I know you were gray. You were ashy. You were dead. And he said, we didn't save you. What happened? And I'm just a smart aleck. And I just said, well, hell wouldn't take me. God didn't want me, so I had to come back. But I just said, I know you saved my life and I owe you a lot. But I had things that I needed to have done and I had to come back. And he says, well, I have to believe you because we didn't do it. And I even told him something about his father then that only he knew. And he was so blown away, he cried. And then he said, I believe everything you said because there's no other way. You were just there. You were just back. But my dad, when I got in my body, I'll never forget this. I'll never forget his fingers. He went to my heart and he went, boop, made that sound like that in my heart. And then I woke up in intensive care. And it's funny because when I woke up in intensive care, I couldn't wait to tell Shirley-Ann. I had to get it out as soon as I could. I didn't want to forget it. And then I would talk to my mom and my aunt and my sisters, and I'll never forget because she said, we'll be there for pain. And I said, my neck and my hurt so bad. And my mom said to me, I will wipe your brow and I'll rub your neck so you're better. And I couldn't really feel it, but everything got better. Like when she told me that, and she said, you will get better and the Lord will bless you to do those things. But I would see them and they would even be there, and the nurses would come in and say, who are you talking to? And I would say, my mom. They'd say, wasn't she dead? And they say, yeah. But to me, that's normal. And I don't want to go in, we could be here forever because since then, there are things that have happened to where been told to go do things for people that only from God were they given these gifts. It's for people that need the other side to tell them things or help or just to give them encouragement. There is hope. I can promise you, everyone out there is a God. He knows you and he cares. And if you just ask, you have to ask, but you'll find those things. But you have to be sincere, and you also have to be trying to live a good life. You can't help a person that isn't trying. That doesn't mean you need to be perfect. Just like if I'm not an example that anyone can be brought back from the precipice of hell, because that's where I was, to be whole and to be given wonderful gifts, I just want to give, if you're in addiction, if you're in pain, if you're in, it doesn't matter. He'll take that for you and turn it into wonderful things that you cannot even imagine. And what he has done for me with my family, my kids all now, I've been able to mend those. They call me Dad, which is a miracle. It is worth everything that I went through. And what a gift from the Lord. Those things are what matter. Money, I don't care about money or anything like that anymore. I really don't. Could care less. The toys, I care more that I have peace. And that the Lord could walk hand in hand with me and it's okay. And I could be a tool for him. And that's what, and it's never ending. I realize that's the start of what I was to do. And the miracles just pour out. It's just unbelievable what has been given to me, and I can't thank the Lord enough. All you have to do is decide who you're going to follow, who you're going to let drive your bus, basically. I have to do it very simple because I'm simple. And he'll pour out the host of heaven. He'll pour out the heavens for you if you just try. And you try every day. That's all I'll ever ask. And even how he made it to where I can be believed. It's shocking to me how I can be made better. And that's what I share my story. It's not for anything more than to give hope and for anything more that there is a God, and he loves you, and he knows your name. He knows you and knows what you need. All you need to do is to ask and try, and you'll find unbelievable gifts for you. And I hope if this helped one person, I would be thrilled. So thank you so much for letting me share my story.
Well, mission already accomplished, because you helped me a whole bunch with
Well, thank you.
all kinds of messages and thoughts and things for me to take into my own life. So I can guarantee you're going to help a lot of others. And I try to kind of really be in the moment and ask the questions that I feel like really like I'm being told to ask. And I think you probably answered the biggest one, which I was going to ask. There are a lot of people dealing with addictions and faith problems in particular too. It's really hard for people with everything that's going on in the world to even believe that there is a God, and maybe they have addictions or whatever the problem might be. And so I was going to ask you what you would tell them, but I think you just did. I think you just said basically you kind of have to make that decision and kind of let go and let God drive the bus, right?
Yes, and what instead of, why did you do this to me, Lord? Why this or why that? I now ask him, what am I supposed to learn from this? And I also, insurmountable things. I've done all the different things to get out of drugs and I help classes and stuff, and people will say the whole, greater power, the higher power. They don't even really know what that is, but they've never even asked or even tried to find that. And I realized I had no shot at ever being whole without the higher power. And once you just let him into your life, you can't see the forest for the trees there, but I look back, and he was my guardrail so many times and saved me and protected me so many times, and then sent me the right person exactly the right time. And I can tell you miracles of me being sent. I'll tell you one really quick, and I won't be long.
Love to hear it.
But I'm going home, and there was the Lord, this is how he talks to me, and this happened. This is one of many. And he said, and I was tired. I was overwhelmed, wanted to go home and go to bed. And he said, you need to go to the dollar store. And he said, when you get to the dollar store, you'll know what to do. And I said, okay, whatever. Usually I'd always have to say, well, what for, or whatever. And I said, okay, but I didn't. I went and I got in my bed, and I'm laying in bed, and it was just like an earthquake, shook my bed, just like scared me. It almost rolled me. And he said, did you not hear me? I said, yeah. Sorry. And I heard through my clothes on. The dollar store was only 2 minutes down the road. I went down to the dollar store, and he said, he's not going to be in the front. He's back in the kind of wooded area. And I knew what that was. It's the drug where you buy drugs. I've done it, been there. And that's where crazy things happen. And I said, I'm not going back there. And then I remembered the bed, and I said, no, I'm sorry. And he told me, take $20. He said, he's not going to be out there asking for anything. You'll know when you see him, and you'll know what to do. I went back there, and he was in his sleeping bag, and I called him by name. It just came out. And he said, yes. And he came up, and he just said, well, who are you? Can I help you? And I said, yes. The Lord sent me. The Lord sent me to you, and I had to come right now. I don't know why, but he told me to come, and I came. And I said, I'm sorry I'm not better looking woman or something that might be more pleasing to you. But I said, the Lord sent me. And he just came up, and he wrapped his arms around me and just started sobbing and crying. And he just said, I had just prayed to the Lord, and I told him, I just need to know you're here. Just need to know you're out there, that you even here, you exist. That's all I need to know, and I'll fight on. If not, I am done. I'm ending it. And he pulled his jacket back, and he had a pistol in his waistband, and it was a revolver, and he pulls it, and he opens it up, and there's one bullet in there. He said, this was for me. This was mine. And I was done. This was it tonight. My family hates me. Everyone hates me. And I have no hope. I just needed to know he was there. And you showed up. And not only that, you called me by my name. I don't know who you are. I said, the Lord knows your name. The Lord knows who you are, and he knows your strife. And I said, can I please have your bullet? I have his bullet in my house. And I said, I gave him just what I knew about it. I said, if you go halfway with your parents, even the brother that you think hates your guts and will do nothing for you. And he said, I didn't tell you I had a brother. And I said, the Lord doesn't need. And he said, just put yourself in his shoes. You've hurt him, and you need to try. If you could just be honest, even if it's not the right answer they want to hear, if you would just be honest with them and try to meet them halfway, your life will change. And he's just, and I said, here's $20. And he said, did the Lord give you that? And I said, yeah, in a way, but he told me to give it to you. And he said, he was so overwhelmed. He got on his knees and he was going to he started try to kiss my, I said, I'm not God. I said, I'm just a messenger. I said, I've been where you are. I promise you. And you can change and you can be so much more, and you are so much more than you think you are. Do you promise me you'll try? And he said, I have to. I know there's a God and he expects me to. I says, yeah, you're right. And I drive by every once in a while and he wings me down on the road and he tells me how he's made progress. It's not perfect. He even had a girlfriend and he said I couldn't date her until she was off drugs because I got off drugs the next day. And he said, and I'm in a little halfway house thing that's mine. And it's not perfect, but I'm getting better and I have a much better, even with my nasty brother, he swore about his brother. He said, but he's even so much better. Everything you said has come true, and I thank you. And they said, well, where do you preach? And I said, I'm not a preacher. I said, I'm just like you, a guy. And I said, I think you should try to find God. I think you owe it to him to find him, and he'll change your life with that. And I seen him like 3 or 4 times since then, and you can just tell by his countenance and how he is, he's so much better. And it made me realize when God calls, you don't go to bed, you go. And I could tell you so many stories that are amazing like that then just reinforce that all you have to do is give a little of yourself, and then if you can just hear him, it will change your life. The Lord has timing, and you have to be able to, that's why you have to have that open so you can listen, and it will only work when he's ready and prepared the way. That's why you have to have that relationship with him. And judge not that you be not judged. There's so many other things I can go into, and I don't want to sound like I'm know-it-all, and I don't want to ever sound like I'm egotistic, or I know what I was and what I am, and anything that is good of me, mine's minuscule, but the Lord's is immense. And I pray for all of it. I can see it out there, how many people are hopeless and wandering and looking. I just pray. I promise you, if you'll just put in effort to find God, he'll find you back. He found me in a jail cell, trying to kill myself in a metal toilet. He'll come to where you are. I promise you that. So, hope that helps.
Thank you, David.
You bet.
It's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for your beautiful message.
I don't think you'll ever understand until you look back and see all the people that you'll help. And I hate to say this is not morbid anyway, but when you pass, all the people through this that you've helped will come to you then and say, you helped change my life. So good on you.
Thank you.
Yes. God bless you.